What it do, what it Dunsky. Thank you for joining me in the Broskiedoodles podcast. Your boy Kiko here, and today I want to talk about some shit that actually is really deep in my heart. It really does affect me emotionally. Please subscribe to the thing, like it, leave a comment, share it with your boys. Let's get this shit rolling here, dog. I'm gonna talk about Cuba today. I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions with the situation in Cuba. You probably heard recently a lot of the news about people protesting the regime over there. Very justified. People are tired of the bullshit. People are tired of living in misery, in poverty, and this is all fault of the Cuban regime, right? And the reason why I wanted to speak about this today is because I want to lay down some truth and facts about the situation in Cuba, because there's a lot of bullshit myths that sort of support and justify the fact that Cuba's not doing well in the sense of quality of life for the people that live there. I have a lot of Cuban friends. I have a lot of love for the Cuban community, the citizens, the people that are out of Cuba as well. I have a lot of Cuban friends. So obviously when I talk about the regime, it's just the piece of shit regime, not the Cuban people, which are amazing people. Venezuela and Cuba, we have a lot of connection in that sense, because in Venezuela, we also have a communist dictatorship, and it's mainly ran by the same people in Cuba, right? So it's all they're like a little gang, right? That are fucking up different countries in Latin America. And I want to start with the first myth that I hear a lot of people say. You sometimes see people supporting the Cuban regime or justifying the fact that the country is not doing well because of the U.S. blockade, right? And to start off, there's no blockade. A blockade would be if the U.S. had ships and planes blocking things from getting to Cuba, like resources, food. That's not at all what's happening. It's an embargo, right? And an embargo, literally, all that it means is that as a country, you don't allow your citizens to sell products to businesses in Cuba or the Cuban regime, or vice versa. You cannot buy things from Cuba. That's all. And, last time I checked, the U.S. is not the only place in the world that sells things, I mean, they barely make anything these days. So, to me, that excuse that the Cuban people have it bad and they're going through poverty and bad quality of life, that's due to the U.S. embargo. I mean, the U.S. embargo is just one country deciding to not trade with another country, and that's it. And I searched up some statistics. You can pull this up from Britannica.com, which seems very reputable. And these are sources from 2017, and it shows a graph of what are Cuba's main imports, right? Which countries they import from. And they give us here some graph for a little bit more than half of where these imports come from. The other half, they just say other, which I would assume will be the other communist regimes that, all have, dirty money and shit. But a little bit over half of the things that go into Cuba are from Venezuela, are from China, Spain, Mexico, and Brazil. This means that there's a lot of places that sell things to Cuba that don't have any restrictions regarding what they can sell to Cuba. So when you tell me, Cuban people are bad because Cuba cannot buy products because of the embargo that the U.S. has on them, that's total bullshit. Cuba can buy from a lot of countries. In fact, one of the main exports that Cuba sells, believe it or not, Cuba does have a little bit of export, things that they produce, and it has to do with sugar canes, right? Sugar. They have a lot of sugar cane. So the Netherlands, right? The Netherlands buys about 4% of the export that Cuba has. So, they have businesses and trades with other countries. So that alone is total bullshit, right? There's no, there's nothing true to the fact that Cuban people are in misery, and you're gonna blame that on the U.S. has no sense. Makes no sense at all. Another myth that you hear a lot is that Cuba has an amazing health system. Oh, Cuban has free health care for everybody, and they're like the most modern, the best medics in the world, the best fucking surgeons, the best procedures and technology and shit. And like that's total bullshit. Like, when was the last time you fucking heard about, oh, we have a Cuban doctor that's a brain surgeon and is fixing some, brain cancer that nobody could figure out before? You never hear shit like that. Whenever I have seen videos or heard of friends that live there, they always tell me over there it's just very basic shit. Yeah, it is free, but why does it matter if it's free if it doesn't work? It's still like they're still in the 1950s. Yeah, they'll treat you, but they're not in the fucking up and end of the fucking medical standards and shit. They're not when have you ever seen of like a rich person going to Cuba to get an operation or some shit because they're the best at that shit? Have you ever heard somebody be like, yo, I'm gonna get my eyes operated in Cuba because they have specific procedures that nobody else has in the world? No, that doesn't happen. And this is, again, it's my opinion, but it's a very well-educated opinion from a lot of friends and people that have been to Cuba and have lived there and have told me this shit. Another myth that you hear a lot is that Cuba has like an amazing education system, right? Free education, and is the best of the best in the world. That's where you get the best fucking minds and intellectuals. And again, total bullshit. I'm not saying there are no teachers that care about their vocation and teach kids even if the buildings are crumbling down. But to me, that's not first-class education, I have friends that have lived there, and I have friends that have visited and gone to universities, and the buildings are falling down. They don't have a computer room with modern computers where people are learning and figuring out modern shit. So like, don't tell me, oh, they have free health, free education, all this bullshit. Yeah, a lot of things are free in Venezuela, and they fucking suck. Whenever something's free, nothing's free in the world. So if they tell you it's free, somewhere else they're getting that money for, or they're just straight up not giving you any service, right? In Venezuela, my dad was close to dying, and we had to go to the public hospital. And yeah, that was free, but they didn't have running water. The electricity will come and go. They didn't have laboratories to do blood tests. So like, without that, how do you even solve, problems when somebody has, medical issues? So yeah, all this free shit in Cuba, yeah, it's free, but it doesn't fucking work. Okay, go online. Thanks to the internet, we have so much shit now that you can see. But if you go online and you just search Cuba, like reality of Cuba, and you will see people filming inside of Cuba and show you the buildings falling down. They don't have running water in a lot of places. It only comes and goes at certain hours. And I've experienced this in Venezuela. In Venezuela, you will have days where half the day water would just not come anymore, and you have to wait half a day. This is common. This is common when you have a fucking communist piece of shit regime. Well, I'm gonna say it's a regime, but I'm like, it's a regime. It's a regime. Hey, is this the Cuban regime? So, yeah, shit is gonna get fucked up when you have imbeciles in power. They're all they're doing is stealing all the money and squeezing everything they can from the land and the people that live there. The actual soul of the country, right? They sucked it out. Such beautiful countries, right? Like Venezuela, like Cuba, Nicaragua. There's a lot of examples of where they're doing this. And they're just exploiting the land and the resources and leaving people to poverty and just living in dire conditions. It's hurtful, So when they tell me about like, no, in Cuba they have the best medics. It's like, well, my dad, one time we had to take him to like a local health center. And at the time, the Venezuelan president had an amazing idea that we would send oil to Cuba and Cuba would send us medics in return. And which was a bit weird because we already have a lot of medics and really good ones in Venezuela that graduated and they needed a job. But no, let's get them from somewhere else. And on top of that, let's get medics that don't even know what the fuck they're talking about, or because they didn't really go to like a proper medic school. And nothing against these medics. as a person. Like the guy that was treating my dad that night, he seemed like a very good person with a family, and he just wants to help, but he was ignorant to the topic of human biology. So he was like recommending my dad take pills that could have killed him. He was like telling my dad to take benzodiazepine so he could sleep and shit. And my dad has certain issues that would have put him on some like fucked up situation. So I've seen this shit firsthand, right? In Venezuela, I've seen when you had to make lines to just buy toilet paper. And I think about that now and I laugh because I was like, man, that's insane. That's insane. But that shit happened. You see how money is not worth anything because when the local currency can be printed by the regime whenever they want, money is not worth nothing. Today, a Coca-Cola is worth $1. Tomorrow is worth $10. So it makes no sense. Each time is more dangerous. There's no technology advancements. Internet in Cuba is shit, right? You have to go to a plaza, use a card to buy internet for like a certain amount of minutes, and then use it in a plaza. Like, imagine that shit. Thankfully, there is some sort of internet, and there's a lot of people, taking out images and shit so that we can see how it is. But it's really insane that today you still have people that would tell you, yeah, in Cuba what's happening is because of the embargo or it's because of the capitalist piece of shit countries. It's like, man, Cuba's issues can only be blamed to their own regime. They've been there for 65 years or more. So if you cannot solve and implant your perfect socialist communist system that you have told everybody that is amazing in 65 years, then I don't think that's a system that we should be aspiring to. I don't want to get political here. I respect everybody's views. But one thing that we should be clear about is that somebody that wants to socialize everything and have the arrogance to think that they're gonna be able to produce the most by controlling everything is somebody that's insane, right? Like that idea doesn't work. Like, through free market is how people are able to specialize in different fields and provide products and services at really good prices and good quality. And this sort of creates this rolling ball of incentives for people to improve lives, right? So in Cuba, the essence of it, and at the end of the day, they don't even really believe on what they preach, because the government, the regime, they live like goddesses, right? They live like fucking kings with lobster and whores and shit. But the people at the bottom, they're the ones that have to be equally poor. That's really what it comes down to. Everyone in Cuba is equal. They're equally poor. So, I'm just saying, I wanted to clarify that because I feel like out there's so many people talking shit that they don't even know about, supporting bullshit that they don't know about, and I just think we just need to be informed on the things that are happening. Even if you're on the left or whatever, that's fine, but there's a difference between you being in the left and supporting what's happening in Cuba. Like, the regime in Cuba is a piece of shit regime that's been fucking people's lives and families for generations, and that has no excuse. The only reason why that has happened is because they have made it that way. They have purposely fucked their people for over half a century. And it is happening in Venezuela now for over 23 years. So this is the type of shit, like when a communist country comes and implants themselves in a country, it's a cancer that cannot be taken out. And unfortunately, as much as I support the protest in Cuba now, and I've been supporting like Cuban opposition for so long. Like, I'm with them 100%, not just now. I've been with them for all my life. But unfortunately, I think that this is not really going to cause anything. There might be some countries that put an embargo on Cuba after this and sanctions and shit like that. But the only thing that would take these guys out is if somebody militarily intervene in Cuba, and I don't think that's gonna happen. That would be too. That would be. I mean, I don't even think that's myself. I would need to think about if that's even a good option if it could happen. But that's just too hard for it to happen these days, because that means another country invading a country, and it's just it's a lot harder. And if that's not the case, then nothing's gonna take these guys out. They don't give a fuck if the whole country is dying of hunger. As long as they got their lobsters and their whores to fuck at night, they don't give a fuck about if the people are out there dying and shit. So unfortunately, I don't think these protests are gonna change anything. But I do think that it really helps to make it clear to the world and show that everyone is in line with this, with the fact that we all agree that what's happening in Cuba is fucked and we support the protesters. Because whenever somebody comes out and says, but what about the US embargo? I'm like, yo, really, yo? Are you really gonna bring that up? Like, how is that even, like, just doing that hurts. It hurts in the heart, and it hurts the movement to continually push for the Cuban regime to be frowned upon. And frowned upon seems like a small word, because this motherfucker should just be eliminated. But I'm saying everybody should be on par with the fact that this is very bad people that shouldn't be in power, and that they've been fucking up their people and their citizens for over 65 years. It's insane. It's insane what has happened to a lot of places in Latin America due to this communist regimes. And, you know, I want to hear what you guys think, what your thoughts are on this. I really, you know, this is today's episode is not really much of a fun joke one. I wish it was, but you know, this is what came out of me. This is the shit that comes to my mind when I think of this, of these situations, you know. Like, and you know, I'm fortunate to be able to have had the family that I had with the resources they had, even if, you know, we weren't always in the best position. But I was lucky enough to be able to get out of Venezuela and educate myself and grow and progress in life. But there's a lot of people that didn't have that chance. There's a lot of people that had to leave Venezuela walking, literally. There's a lot of videos that you can see people walking from Venezuela to Colombia. And it's really hard to see, you know. And this is all caused by a regime that destroyed a whole, you know, in the case of Venezuela, I mean, Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world. And the Venezuelan regime still to this day will say that a lot of the things that have gone wrong in Venezuela are due to US interventions and shit. I mean, dude, if you have the largest oil resource in the world, right? Like, you have the largest reserves, even more than Saudi Arabia, and you still cannot fucking make your country work, a small country, we're only like 35 million people, then you don't know what the fuck you're doing, right? And again, in Venezuela, it's the same case. It's not like they believe in the socialist communism that they tell us, right? No, they don't. They have money. They live, you know, really good lives. They love to vacation to capitalist countries like the US, you know, Spain, you know, like live the life. So, you know, I really want to know what you guys think about this. This is a topic that's really deep in my heart, very close to my heart. So please, tell me your comments. Share this. I think this is important for everybody to share this shit, because this is something that really matters. You know, this is something that we should all be on par with, and explain to people, you know, the myths, like the bullshit that people talk about, why Cuba is like that. No, Cuba's like that because of the piece of shit regime. So thanks a lot for listening and tuning in. I'll see you next week, and have a great day, man. Peace.